Hi, Jerrod.
Hey, Christy, how are you?
I'm doing great.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I'm super excited to do this.
Yeah, so glad you're joining us today and you can take some time out of your busy schedule and hang out with us for a few minutes and answer some questions and hear about what it's like to be a performer. That's
Yeah.
so exciting. Where are you, if you don't mind me asking, where are you right now? What's going on in this present moment?
Yeah. So I'm currently in between contracts. I just finished on board the Sky Princess and currently supposed to go to the Enchanted Princess at the end of February. So I'm in New York right now, just auditioning for a few other things. I think that it's always important to keep auditioning, even when you don't necessarily need the work, just to like keep yourself fresh. The worst thing that you could do is to get done with a bunch of contracts and then feel like you're completely green again going back into auditioning. So I like to just do it even if I don't necessarily have the schedule to make any offers happen. I definitely want to still be in the room and maybe even have people like with my name coming out of their mouth talking about me for the future.
100%. Yeah, I love that. I think in this industry that you're in, you always you're never really fully done searching for. Hey, I mean, there's always an end to a contract, there's always an end to a project or whatever it is. So you're always kind of looking for a thing, even if you're in the midst of a thing or about to start your next project, you're looking 3 steps ahead, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So just for the curious minds, let's go back and just you want to let everybody know kind of how we know each other, what our connection is quickly, and then I want to kind of hear your story from kind of where we knew each other way back in the day.
Yeah, so I used to, when I was very young, I say very young, like 20 years old. It's been a long time. No, I used to travel with a with a group called Clear Vision Drama, which was a drama company that traveled across the world. I went to the Philippines with them. I went most of the 50 states with them, which was fantastic. And I worked with a young lady who was friends with Mrs. Parrish. I definitely almost called you Mrs. Chick the other day. It's pretty funny. But from there, we became friends. You were in a theater program. I was in a vocal performance program, and we just connected through that and kind of stayed in touch as friends throughout the years. And now we're
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of just like tend to get along and hang out, don't we? Yeah, I remember that does feel like a long, long time ago. I feel like a lot of things then, and so I do about so you were in a vocal music program.
Mhm.
What happened after that? How did you get from there to where you are now?
Yeah, so originally my degree was in vocal performance and church music. So with a minor in Bible and all that, and I went to a small Bible college in Missouri. And my original goal was to be a worship pastor, and I did that for a number of years, and then did regional theater on the side just for fun, just because I loved it, and kind of earned my chops. Got used to the system and the way that theater works. And then around 2021, after the pandemic had started, I decided to make my move from full time ministry into full time performing. And so I got a job in Branson. I got a few shows there, did that for about 2 years. And then through some networking, was able to make my way over to Silver Sea Cruises. And then from there over to Princess Cruises. And that's where I'm at right now.
And you're in between contracts. So, where was your last? What was your last contract, and is it the same as this upcoming contract, or is it different?
Yeah. So these are really unique contracts. Basically, I've been hired for a 3 contract deal. So it's the same shows across 3 ships over the course of about a year and a half. So back in June, July, August, that time frame, I was in rehearsals for these different shows, and then we flew out from LA, which was where we did the rehearsals, out to Southampton in the UK to get on the Sky Princess. We did those shows for 6 or so months until January of this year. And then I have about 5 weeks off before I get on the Enchanted Princess next. We'll do the same shows. And then that'll go for about 4.5 months. and then I'll have about another 5 or so weeks off, and then one more time on the Discovery Princess is the current schedule. Yeah.
So you're
So you're
really
really
jumping
jumping.
ships, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So you
Yeah,
were working part-time, or sorry, you were working full-time as a music minister,
that's
and
right.
then switched to Branson. Started going into Branson. Okay, can you tell me a little bit about how did you how did you get involved in Branson? Because I have several students, and I know there's people around there that are just
Mhm.
curious. Started in a place like Branson.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't have any contacts of anybody in Branson, so I just kind of started to talk to people that I thought might know someone. Said, "Hey, just so you know, I'm looking to start working in this type of industry. If you hear of anything, then please let me know." And I got super lucky. I got a really great contact for a show called Hot Rods and High Heels down at the Clay Cooper Theater. And they actually had done, I heard about the audition about 3 hours after the audition had happened. But they were like, hey, we've heard they didn't necessarily see the people that they wanted to see. So go ahead and email, just tell them that this person or this person sent you, and then hopefully, they'll talk to you. And so they did, and they had me in for the callback. And I sang and did a little movement number and got the job. And I can tell you, most of the jobs that I have gotten have there's a small amount that have been because of maybe my resume or a reel or something like that. Like that doesn't usually get you in the room. What normally gets you in the room is networking. It's knowing people who know people. So the more people that you can get in touch with, that you can become friends with, just in this industry, honestly, the better. I don't see a downside from that.
So true. I tell I work with that it is a lot about your talent. It is a lot about who you know and how you can get your
Mm-hmm.
foot in the door, and who knows who and who knows who's looking for who. And they heard something from someone that they're looking for something, and
Mm-hmm.
they have a contact, and you have to just kind of put yourself out there. And if you're not willing to do that, then I always say respectfully, maybe you need to find something else. If you got to get out there, you really do. And so,
Yeah.
with that being said, a lot of times you're going to hear a no, or you're going to hear nothing at all. You're lucky if you hear no, really. That's kind of the
Right.
if if you hear no, or if you don't hear anything at all, what is
Mhm.
your dealing with that? What's your mindset for going through uh getting those no's or getting those silences?
Yeah, so I just went through a season of that before I went to Princess. I decided I wanted to move on after Silver Sea, and so I spent about 5 weeks auditioning and working with my agent to try and find the right fit for me. I took a trip to New York. I took a trip to Florida, and did all of the auditions for different cruise lines and different stuff like that. And usually, like you said, you won't hear a no. You just get kind of ghosted. They just won't talk to you anymore. You'll hear something, and then or they'll say, "Hey, thank you. We've gotten everything that we need from you currently, and if anything changes, we'll let you know." And you go, "All right, thanks a lot." So the best advice that I can have is to don't treat one audition like it's the only audition, right? You need to move on to whatever's next. Okay, I'm done with that. All right, what's next week? What's tomorrow? Where am I going next? And leave that off to the side. And then if they contact you, then you can bring it back up. So as I was going through, I'm sending off self tapes, I'm going to live auditions, and I just randomly get a message from my agent on a one morning that says, "Hey, we have something from Princess. If you're interested, it's a pretty short callback date, but if you'd like, please send in these self tapes." I went in that afternoon and just recorded a couple of videos for them, and then the next day they sent me a contract, and it wasn't even something that was on my radar. And all of a sudden, 10 days later, I'm in LA rehearsing to be on these shows. So that's how it goes.
It's fast sometimes, right? So quickly. Have you had anything that was really, you don't have to give details, but had anything that was really like a heartbreak where you're kind of like, I really
Mm.
back didn't get it?
Yeah. It doesn't, it's not as, is it, it's one of those things where you kind of eventually, you don't get callous to it. That's not how I think of it, but you get in a healthier place
Yeah.
about no's. Definitely some of my hardest no's were shows where I wouldn't have even been paid to be in the show, right? Where maybe I said, no, I really want to be this part to the casting director, and they said, well, then it's not going to happen. Thank you so much. And then you see someone else get the part or something like that. And it's those older times when the show means more to you than getting paid. But for when you're doing the job, you can't let it affect you like that.
100%.
So
I agree. Okay, so you were in Branson, and then you were in Hot Rods and High Heels, and you were
yeah.
in Best Life. Then was that enough to kind of cover all of your expenses? I don't want to be
Yeah.
too like, what does that look like in Branson? Does one show kind of allow you to live, or what are people doing multiple things? Can you explain some?
Mhm. No, we can totally get into the weeds on that if you want. It does not is the is the short answer. Um, Branson is a great way if you're looking for a way to practice, um, basically marathon running as it pertains to performing.
Yeah.
Then go full time in Branson, because that will give you the chops to be able to perform anywhere. So I first got my job at Hot Rods and High Heels. That was a 10 a.m. show, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? Then so it's me singing like Johnny Be Good at 10 in the morning, absolutely. So then I moved over to they had an audition for a dancing role in Clay Cooper's Country Express, which was their country show. And I'm not a huge dancer. I'm a mover for sure. But they needed a man, and I was a man, and so they said, "Can you lift these women up?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so I got the part, and they were nice enough to train me through that, and different people like came alongside me and helped me get better as a performer. And I definitely count that towards like what has made me a better performer is those times when I was stretched, when they were like, "Can you do this?" And I was like, officially no, but like put me in, coach, and I'll make me a better dancer. And that absolutely helped me to get other roles since then. And so that show met 5 times a week. um, and then on top of that, I ended up moving to a different theater that did a show called New Jersey Nights twice a week. So on an average night, that would have been what, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10 shows throughout the regular season. And then add on top of that a Christmas show that I would help out with 3 or so times a week during the Christmas season. So I could be doing anywhere from 10 to 13 to 14 shows in one week, which are all around 2 hours a show. So yeah, so I was either at the theater or I was home sleeping and eating. Honestly, I was doing what I loved, so it didn't bother me at all.
That's amazing. That really puts perspective. So when you're doing multiple shows, because you mentioned one show doesn't necessarily cover it, you've got something else part-time that might work out.
Yeah.
You're in multiple shows. Yeah, you're constantly going, 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 going. You mentioned touch on. So you you were talking about you they asked you if you could do something and you said no, but I'm willing to learn whatever you need me to do. That
Hmm.
again is something that I just preach so hard. Being able to pivot, being able to be adaptable,
Hmm.
flexible, pretty much every way, including literally flexible, Mr. Mover. So to be directable, I guess is a good term. Able to take direction and kind of just know, in a sense, know your role as the performer, and you're putting on the production, putting out the product that the director or production company or whatever it is requesting of you. Have you seen that be I guess during the rehearsal process specifically? Can you talk
Hmm.
about being directable and being able to
Yeah.
be
One of the things that I tell myself in moments where I feel like it's necessary is from an old war poem, which says, "It's not mine to question why, it's only mine to do or die." and die,
Mm,
maybe. I forget. Now I'm gonna mess it up. But the whole thing is like my job is to perform the product, like you said, to the absolute best of my ability, exactly as I was directed to do. And if once that's done, if I'm given freedom to make different choices, then I absolutely will to choose what I think is going to be best for that character and for me inside that character. But at the end of the day, it's not my decision as a performer. It is the director's decision, and I need to be like a piece of clay that they are trying to form into the correct pot for the situation, right?
yeah.
So absolutely, you have to, and that can be tough sometimes. I've definitely, you see people, and I've felt it where I'm like, no, this is the right thing to do. There was a tough moment for me in one of the shows that I'm in right now called Five Skies, and I play the lead of the show. Who his name is Gamer One, and he is trying to beat the world's like most famous video game for the first time. No one's ever beaten it. Think a musical version of Ready Player One, and that's kind of will give you an idea of what it's like. But there's a section in it where I'm wearing a harness inside underneath my clothes for the entire show, so that inside of like a 15 to 20-second period, I can connect to two bungee cords on either side of me, and then I have to sing the song Believer while jumping up and down and doing backflips and like flying out into the air over the audience. And so there's a whole section there where the hardest movements in the song are during the chorus, and they have everyone singing alongside me. And I had a moment where I was like, it would be easier if I took a second and inhaled here and just like came out for a second. And they were like, no, we need you to sing, it's very important. And I said, okay, then that means that I need to become a better performer. I need to up my cardio. I need to make sure that I'm taking like focusing on my breath support, taking the air in when I can. And so I practiced until I could do the entire show without ever having to like come out for any section, even if I was backtracked or if there were people singing alongside me. I never came out, and that was what they wanted, and that's what you had to deliver. So simple as that.
Absolutely insane. And I don't know how you doing that. And I don't understand how one can literally do flips and sing like that. I think very few people that I've seen do such crazy things. How do you, I don't know. How, I mean, what, okay, just tell me quickly. Uh, what do you do to kind of keep up with that athleticism? Because not every role is going to require that, obviously. But just curious, what do you do to kind of allow yourself to make that jump from I need this breath to okay, I'm going to have to figure it out.
Yeah. So this goes into that part of this industry where you have to make sure that you're the proper instrument for the job, right? If I want certain roles, then there's certain things that I need to make sure that my body can do in order to perform those roles. So usually I start off every day with about an hour of low intensity cardio, and that can be something as easy as walking or just like being on a bike and just moving my body, right, making sure that like I could jog for an hour without any issues. Then I also lift 5 times a week, full body, like squatting and pressing and all that stuff, to make sure that I can, if I needed to pick someone up, I could. And then on top of that, I'll usually do 10 to 20 minutes of some high intensity cardio, whether that's something like CrossFit style or even just like getting on a rower and just making sure that my heart rate goes up like into zone 3 or 4, like into 130 beats or more a minute, just to make sure that I can also perform when I'm at those high heart rates, right? Because I'm sure you felt it. You probably felt it when you're auditioning for something or you're in front of a bunch of people for the first time, and all of a sudden your heart starts to pump really, really hard, and you can feel it beating, and you're like, no, I have to calm down. I've never sung this with this happening. Like, you got to let it, you have to be ready to perform under any circumstance. So practicing all of those things to make sure that I'm in the right physical and mental mindset for it.
Or are you there like on a treadmill singing your songs while you're like,
Sometimes.
I totally
Yeah, absolutely.
okay, cool. So let's back up a little bit. So you were you were in Branson, you've done Jersey
Mhm.
Nights. What made you want to make the transition out? and kind of how did you make that transition?
Yeah. So my big goal, for just me as a performer is I would love to be on Broadway one day. I'd love to do musical theater, as a full book shows. So we're talking, Les Mis, The Music Man's, anything like that. There you go. And so that's been part of my like end goal, and I feel like you want to pick something when you're trying to make sure that you aren't going to quit when things are hard. You need to pick something that's really big and kind of scary. And so as I've moved through this industry, each thing that felt scary at one point now feels like, oh, okay. Like at one point, Branson was terrifying, right? I'd never been, I didn't know anything about it. And now I have so many friends and people that I care about that are there, and I love going back and seeing them whenever I'm able to. And then cruise work seemed really scary and really terrifying for the same thing, right? Like, oh, this big new thing. It's basically a city that floats on water and goes wherever it wants. So how do you like? What are the different ways that you deal with people in that? And now I love it, right? I love going, and it kind of feels like I go and move into my little apartment for 6 months, and I get to go do this kind of thing that I want to do for the rest of my life, which is perform. And so now my big goal is to make it to Broadway. But when I was in Branson, that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, okay, what's going to be a good next step towards that big goal, which was making it to New York. Yeah.
You got your first cruise job,
Yeah.
and what was that job like? And then how did you make the switch to your next position?
Right. So Silver Sea was amazing. It was fantastic. The itinerary was insane. So we started in Valparaiso, which is like the very bottom of South America, and then cruised through just across the ocean all the way to New Zealand, and spent a month in New Zealand, Australia, and Tasmania, and then ended it up north in Korea and Japan, which was fantastic. But it's a great time. The atmosphere on Silver Sea is a little bit different, and that's something that you notice with different lines is that they're catering to different people. Princess, where I'm at now, is a little bit more family friendly. Not that Silver Sea isn't, but it's just more towards adults. Princess is still very fancy, but they're wanting to be more for families, whereas Silver Sea is about $1,000 a night. So it's a very high end clientele. Absolutely. So the shows and everything is built around that, as well as the fact that people who are cruising with Silver Sea are more interested in the ports they're going to than necessarily like what's on the ship. Whereas
Like,
people who are going right. So whereas people who are going on Princess might be more inclined to stay and see what they can do while they're on the ship, is especially things like shows. So the production value on Princess is a much higher budget than it is on Silver Sea. So there's definitely differences with each one. Like with Silver Sea, I was working with 5 other singer movers, whereas with Princess, I'm one of 4 singers, and then there are about 10 or 11 dancers that are doing different things alongside of us. So yeah.
yeah. Okay, so what's been your favorite? I can include Branson in this if you want. Kind of been your favorite role that you've done, or
Mm.
something that you just like, or every time you did it, you were like, yes, nailed it, love it, easy challenge, and every time you nailed it, it was the best.
Yeah. I've had a few roles that I've loved. I try not to I always want to be most excited about the roles that I'm currently doing, right? Because it just can get you down a little bit if you're like, oh man, remember when I did such and such role and it's not as good as this one, right? Not that that's the case, but always want to make sure that I'm excited about what I'm currently doing. That said, I loved being Baron von Trapp in The Sound of Music. That was a ton of fun. Um,
Well, anyone who knows me knows this about me. And I did not get to see you in that show, but I'm sure it was fantastic.
Well, thank
Love
you
it.
so much. No, I love Von Trapp because he is a really unique example of someone who you get to dive so deep with his emotion, while also having to keep so much of it away from the audience. So if they want it, they're going to have to go searching for it. but you still as an actor want to have as much of that in you as possible for them to find. Absolutely. Um, so also, I would say right now my favorite show to do is probably Spotlight Bar.
Mhm.
Um, as far as just like it's one of my favorites that we're doing right now. It's based in a like a local bar. The set for this show looks amazing. It looks like you're on Broadway. And it is,
Really cool.
yeah, absolutely. And so it tells the story of this just regular bar anywhere in the world and the people who are going to and are at that bar or work at that bar. And so if you could go and see that show 14 times and get 14 different stories just by following each person. Maybe this person is texting and is just on their phone the whole night and they're actually like on Tinder and they're trying to find true love, or maybe this person lost their true love and now they're trying to get it back, and they realize that they've missed out on something really important to them. Which brings me to my favorite song from the show right now to sing is "When I Was Your Man" from by Bruno Mars, and it just is exactly that. It's this song where my character, who's the bartender, used to be with the owner of the bar, and he knows he messed up. He wishes he could go back, but he knows he just can't. And
Yeah.
now everyone just has to move forward, and he has to sit with what he's done for the rest of his life, and that's just something he has to reckon with. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. So, okay, I've got a couple questions that I kind of want to try to answer in there before we wrap up. But
Okay.
one that I want to kind of talk about is when you are doing the same show multiple times a week, even when you're in Britain or whatever the case may be, wherever you are in the world, in South Korea, New Zealand, you're doing the same show maybe every day or at least multiple times a week. How do you maintain the energy level, the excitement, the keeping it fresh? How do you keep it fresh?
Yeah, so normally, most ships, most lines, you're gonna do your whole array of shows once, or sorry, actually twice every cruise. So you'll do so right now, I'm in 7 day cruising, which means once a week I do our three main stage shows, and we do two showings of each of those shows on the nights that we do them. So I'll do basically 6 shows a week, which are about 45 minutes. And it can be really easy to kind of fall off a little bit and kind of get complacent because you're like, well, I'm doing the show. I've been practicing this since July. It's now January. That's when it's that much more important to really dive in because now you've got it down, right? This is what directors hope for is for you to have done the work and have everything down, have all the music down, have all of the blocking down, have all the choreography down, so that now you can work on that character. Who is this person? What do they want? What do they not want? What are they afraid of? There's so many things that you can add to this performance. And then even once you've done that work, each specific performance is an opportunity to take note of what has been lacking and what you can do better the next time, right?
Yeah.
So okay, this time I was a little bit too loud on my high note, and that made things feel a little unhealthy inside my vocal folds. So what if I bring that dynamic down just a little bit for this big notes that can be a little bit safer for me, but still sound good? Maybe I can move into my mix instead of my belt. Easy little things like that that you could be thinking of for each performance to make it feel a little bit different. And then also like just being present against the people that you're acting with, right? How often do you are you on stage and you're giving it your all and you just look over and the person is just dead inside and you're like, you're not even in here right now. You're just waiting to say your line.
Okay. So what's the schedule like? What it's gonna vary from role to role, from ship to ship, from whatever. But specifically cruise life, I know a little bit of you. Sometimes you're in port, sometimes you're at sea. What is kind of your day-to-day schedule? Or
Yeah,
what is it?
so you get hired for, right? You get hired for the contract and they send you out to wherever they're going to have rehearsals at.
Mhm.
And that's usually when it's going to be that and an install are going to be the hardest two parts of the process. You're going to be doing 9 to 5 type work where you come in the morning. You're either working with your choreographer, your main show director, or your voice director, depending on your role. And then you're going to be doing that for a number of weeks. This last contract was about maybe a little bit, 2 months plus a couple days. before they flew us out immediately to our ship. And as soon as you hit the ship, like, so for us, we flew from LA to Southampton. So just hours and hours apart as far as your brain and your like internal clock. So we're all jet lagged and you go immediately into install. So now you're on the stage that you've had taped off in the studio this whole time and you're figuring out, okay, where do I go, like based on this new information. Now I'm working with these different implements and they're big and maybe I'm like riding this big moving platform and I need to be more aware of that. And so you get through all of that. But once you're done and you've opened all the shows and now you're just doing the actual shows as you were contracted to do, then it can be a lot more fun, right? So like I said, I'm basically only working 3 full nights a week. And then there are little things like bumpers or something. Maybe I need to like sail away is a great example. So I'm there for like 30 minutes. I sing 2 songs with our singers, and we do a little dance and just have that big party as the ship is sailing away from the port. But then I'm done for the rest of the day.
What a bumper. Is that an example of a bumper? Is that what a bumper
Yes,
is?
absolutely. A bumper would be just something like, oh, we're just going to add this onto this other thing. So like we need the dancers to come and do this special dance before we pour champagne for everyone. We'll use this bumper exactly.
Perfect. So again, I know that your role is going to vary from people who work in the kitchen or the galley or whatever they call it. But you specifically, as a resident entertainer, do you
Yeah.
have full like, rights as a passenger? Do you get to explore the ship, and do you get to get off when you're at port and explore? I mean, I would assume you do, but can you
Yeah,
tell me?
absolutely. So I'm what's known as a resident guest entertainer. So as opposed to like a production vocalist would be a good example on other lines of what I am. But we are given the same privileges that a guest entertainer would. So I have full guest privileges. I can eat anywhere on the ship, any of the restaurants, anytime. The only time that they might be like, actually, probably not today, is if they're just packed, if they're full and they're just like, I'm so sorry, we can't fit anyone in, or we need to make sure that we have enough for the guests to be able to come in, because at the end of the day, they're the ones paying to be there. Um,
Do
but
you
other
get
than that, go ahead.
do you get laundry service?
No, you get free laundry, but I do have to take it to I have to take it and put it in myself. It's true. It's
Oh,
really tough. It's
rough, rough, rough. Okay. So, what's your kind of coolest experience you've had out there? Kind of what
Hmm.
been or best route that you've taken?
Let's see. It's been I'll say probably my favorite cruise was the New Zealand to Tasmania cruise. Which it was if that was with Silver Sea. Princess, I did Norway and the Mediterranean, and then the Caribbean and Mexico, which have been fantastic. Uh, Norway is beautiful, but there's nothing to do is the problem, and also the sun comes up at about 3 in the morning. So
Yikes.
yeah, but no, New Zealand was beautiful. The beaches were amazing, right? You could rent an electric bike and just go down the coast. It was just a beautiful experience. I really, really, I would encourage anyone, if you have the ability to, go check out New Zealand, because it's just beautiful.
It's on my bucket list. So maybe probably not, but someday. Um,
Okay.
who is your inspiration as a performer?
Okay. So I would say, like, just as far as vocals, I really get a lot from pop vocalists, which is funny because my degree was in classical vocals, right? But I really look up to people like Freddie Mercury, like Elton John, Michael Bublé, as a modern like big band type singer. I love all of their music, and I love the amount of stage presence that they can bring, like the way that they can get an audience on their side is so good. You can feel it that everyone is just there and they're just focused in on them. It's so impressive.
They're like magnets. All I call them when they yes. So free. Do you think, in your opinion, this is going to be so different for every single person, every
Mhm.
have their own path. But what do you have to say on the topic of a college degree in vocal performance, acting? Do you find it necessary when you're out there in the wild? Do you kind of see like a mixed bag of people who have backgrounds with uh, bachelor's degrees or performing arts degrees, or people that didn't go to school at all?
Mhm. No, yeah. So, like we talked about, I have a 4-year degree, so bachelor's degree in vocal performance, which was great, and I loved the things that I learned from it. But I would say if I could go back now, I would either choose a different degree that gave me better connections to the industry that I'm currently in, right? If hindsight is 2020, um, but also I might even consider a smaller degree, like an associate's, or maybe even just getting a certificate of some
Mm.
type. I work with several very, very good dancers who just have 6 month. Um, uh, they went to TAPS or something like that in Vegas, and they went to school for 6 months. They did an intensive with them, and then they helped them book work from there. Right. So there's tons of things. I would say the best thing you can get from going and getting a full degree would be the connections. Like one from the teachers that are probably have their hands in that in the industry that you want to be in, and two from the students that you're going to be hopefully going all the way through it with, that then you will be able to work with in the future as you keep in contact with them, right? That's going to be what you're going to get from those things. And obviously there are tons of people who want to see that degree on your resume. So for some people that's perfect, but does that need to be a 4-year degree? Does that need to be a 6 month degree? Does it need to be a 2 year? That's kind of up to you. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Um, do you prefer, I mean, in the middle of cruise life now, but do you prefer being on solid ground like you were in Branson? I know you said your end goal is kind of Broadway, so I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's kind of, but how do you handle like being on the cruise ship? Joy being at sea, and bonus, have you ever experienced any crazy weather that has affected
Ooh.
performances? Anything that's just like been weird?
Yeah. So it really is a pros and cons for both. Um, Being on a cruise ship is amazing. I have not yet. I've been doing it for over a year now, and I have yet to in any way get tired of the view when you wake up.
Hmm.
Just getting to look out and just seeing that beautiful sea, right? Or a beach that you're at, or even just like a new city that you're getting to see that day. And it's always something different, which is amazing. One thing that I can say is tough is so internet is a big part of ship life, right? We're really lucky with Princess. Princess charges $2 a day for their internet, and they're known for having some of the best internet at sea. But when I was with Silver Sea, I used to have to pay um, around $70 for 2 gigabytes of internet. So you get 2 hours a day for normal use, but it was only good enough to maybe check your email or do things. You couldn't stream any video with it or download anything really. And then if you wanted to, you could pay that money to get more. That was a little bit better, but you still couldn't stream anything with it. But so depending on the line you're with, that and how important that is to you, it's a big factor in whether or not you should move into this specific industry. Yeah,
And even at ports, you're international, so then you've got a plan if you want to do that. Yeah, good point.
exactly.
Okay, another question is, if you're on a cruise, for example, and you had a spouse, could your
Mhm.
spouse, is that experience anybody that has a spouse or family, or is this a kind of like a single phase
Yeah.
industry?
So you see both. You definitely see with cruise work specifically, you see a lot of single people. But then you also see plenty of couples. You see a lot of people who have their spouses at home and maybe they have kids, and so they're here because this is the best way for them to make money. You see a lot of people who will link.
Cruise ship, right?
Say that
Like
again.
cruise ship pay is better than, like, for example, Branson.
No, absolutely. I'm yeah, for definitely for performers. Yeah, absolutely. And then you'll have several people who will maybe try to link up. So you'll see couples who are performing together and they won't go to a different ship unless they are able to move as a pair. So that happens quite a bit. And then yeah, so usually what you can pay, and it's different for every line. So if you were married, you can pay to have that person come out and stay with you in your cabin. But it could be, as your travel partner, and then you would just pay the taxes for having them on the ship and all that. So yeah.
So bring a friend, and that would that count? Like, do you get like discounts for having or friends for a little while, or is that not a thing?
Chrissy, if you and your husband want to go on a cruise, you just let me know, and I'll try to get you on the program. Absolutely.
Well, I always wonder, like, if like, can you bring a friend for like a short stint or something?
Yeah, you absolutely can. Again, with Princess specifically, they have what's known as their friends and family discounts. So you put the people that you would like to be on that program in the system on the crew side, and then let's say that I put you and Mr. Parrish down to do a cruise, then you guys could go on. Then you guys could go on, and you'd have that discount ready for you if you wanted to cruise with Princess.
So you did get an agent at some point. I think we kind of brushed over that.
Yeah.
Get on that real quick.
Yeah, I work with Katie Arkwright. She is the head of Oceans Entertainment. She's been absolutely amazing. If you are looking for someone, I know that she just opened up her books. So if you want to, you should submit to her. I'm not sure how much longer they're going to be open because I know she's gotten a lot of interest. But she's been amazing to work with. And I've worked with a couple of agents, and sometimes it's just not the right fit. Maybe they have different context than what you need, or maybe you just aren't as big of a priority for them as you'd like to be. But when I've worked with Katie, I've had nothing but success. She's worked as hard as I have to make sure that we are both in a good spot. So that's it for anyone who doesn't know. You take on an agent, and they only make money if you're making money. So my agent takes a 10% cut of my total pay, and then for that, she helps me talk to everyone that I need to talk to submit me for different roles, to make sure that I'm in the best possible way to make money. Again, because the more money I make as a performer, the more money she makes as an agent. So it's a great interlocking relationship.
So did you just Google up agents, or did you have a connection with her?
Oh, absolutely. Just like I said with getting into Branson, the same thing happened when I got into Silver Sea, and then the same thing happened when I got to meet my agent. Every single one of those situations were situations where I knew someone who knew someone, and they put me down. Hey, you should work with Jerrod. Hey, Jerrod would be great to have on this team, and that's why it's so important to network and to make friends with people in your industry. That's why,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning, I would say don't say no to as much as possible, right?
Right.
Say yes to everything you can, because those are going to be connections that you can maybe call on down the line of, oh, I got Silver Sea because I did a little regional theater production of The Little Mermaid, and I was Chef Louis, and I made friends with the King Triton for the show. And then about 6 months later, he's on Silver Sea, and he says, Jerrod, I think you'd be great for this. You should submit, and you can put my name down as a reference. They said, oh, you know Traven? Absolutely. Please audition for us. And then it went from there, right? The same
Yeah.
thing. I was working with a girl on Silver Sea. She said, oh, you're looking for an agent, yeah? And I said, absolutely. She said, you should talk to Katie. She's my agent. I love her, and she would be great with you, I think. The exact same thing.
Awesome. Yeah. Super important. Super important to get out there and make friends. Don't try not to make any enemies in this industry from okay, last question.
Yeah.
Can you do Chef Louis?
Can I? I can give you the.
Um, any advice overall? You've given lots of good advice, but do you have anything extra that you want to add just for those young aspiring entertainers?
Yeah. The number one thing I can say. So, I it can be really easy in this kind of job, because you don't work a lot, right? Sometimes you are off for long amounts of time. And it's important for me to never let myself get lackadaisical, um,
Mm.
because that's when you can backslide. Think about all of the years that you've spent working on your vocals or working on your dance technique or your flexibility or any of that. That is stuff that no matter how far in your career you get, you should never take for granted. You should always be working on something. So like, do I now in this part of my career still work on my vocal exercises? Yes, absolutely. I still try to be the best vocalist that Jerrod can be forever. I want to be in my 60s and still be able to say this is the best that I could do. I couldn't be any better than this because I've tried my hardest, right? And it's the same thing with dancing, it's the same thing with moving in general. If you want that, you have to put in the work. So that's what I'd say. Is like, don't be afraid. It's okay. Just put in the work.
And you can't just rely on your natural born gifts and talents that you've been given, because if you're in this industry, most likely you have some sort of natural ability and gifts and talents, but so does everyone else that's in this industry.
That's right.
To make it, you got to keep going, keep putting in the work.
Mhm.
That is what I always say too. Put in the work. You got to,
Yeah,
you want to be here. If you're here with, put yourself
yeah,
here.
and you're exactly right. As soon as you once you start working for pay, everyone that you're working with has at least some type of natural ability, and the difference between them and you might be the amount of time that one of you has spent rehearsing or working on your lines or just any number of things. So you need to make sure that you have everything that you need when you go into that audition room or that rehearsal space or whatever it's going to be.
Well, thank you, Jerrod. Thanks so much for joining today.
I will say the weather part, I've definitely been on a ship, and you can, if you're when it gets bad, it literally feels like you're inside of a washing machine. Like I have been laying in my bed and felt everything just feel like it's doing that while I'm laying still. So be ready for that. That's a possibility.
And then you're like,
Say that one.
actually, you're in a on your
We have
bungee.
had to have some. We have had to have some stops. That actually happened in the middle of a show where they hit the big red button and they were like, "Hey, the weather's too bad. Get them." There is. It's there. It's just right there. It says in case of emergency, boom, and everything stops. So yeah.
Cool. So had to stop. Have you ever had a time scared on the ship?
When I
I'm
was scared.
TikTok that talks about all those North Sea
Oh,
stuff. So have you ever had any moments where you're like, this is the end?
I have not. I have not. I don't really deal with seasickness or anything like that. So usually I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I'm gonna try not to like bump into this wall right now. I've had some issues, some situations where maybe a tech piece doesn't move exactly the way that it's supposed to, and those moments can be scary. But you just have to be on. That's one of those reasons why you need to be present in the moment. So you're like, oh, this didn't move all the way, and this is like this. Uh, like platform is about to go down and like backstage, and then you watch like someone from production sprint on stage and yank it into place, and then everything is fine, but you just have to be ready. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes on. Thanks again, Jerrod. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Enjoy New York. Have fun. I'm so jealous. Have you seen any shows?
I went and saw Wicked last night. It was amazing. Me hyperventilating as Elphaba goes up into the air at the end of Act One. Give me a break. I went and saw Spamalot earlier this week, which was they're doing a revival right now, and it's absolutely hilarious. I went and saw the Office parody musical off Broadway, which was great.
Yeah.
I love going to those. As much fun as those big spectacle musicals are, there's something really really special and fantastic about going to those little off Broadway shows that are like 50 seats, and
Yeah.
they're like interacting with you like as the show's going on and stuff like that. So I would go see all of it if you have a chance. Check them all out. So my plan now. I'm gonna see Back to the Future the musical while I'm here.
I'm so
Yeah.
jealous. That's get there.
And then Hades Town and Juliet. So
Uh,
those are the ones I have left.
so good. I mean, I don't think you can make a bad choice right now. There's just so many good ones out there. So enjoy while you're in New York. New York, how long are you there?
I'm here till the 10th.
Oh, not very much time. Well,
Not
have
not
fun.
much time.
And on your next stint of your contract.
Thank you so much, Christy. It was a pleasure.